She had a lot of stims. She would scream a lot. That's something I definitely will never forget. She didn't talk anymore. So it really did just seem like my baby disappeared, and she didn't make eye contact any longer. Progressively, sleep started getting worse. So over time, she no longer screams. She no longer hand flaps. The spinning disappeared, except for healthy spinning. It's very healthy for children to spin,
Yes.
but her eyes aren't all the way to the corner. Like, it's just a normal child spin. Her playing and enjoying herself. She sleeps through the night. That was a big change after your course.
I'm with Amanda, and I feel so honored to have these conversations with my sisters from all over the globe. It's like going back in time to when my son was diagnosed and had all the symptoms, and I was alone, and nobody was there to support me. And my biggest wish was to have other moms that I could talk about how to turn these symptoms around. And so today I'm having that conversation with Amanda. She's in the middle of that process. And what happens is that we connect. It's like we're walking together. I'm not doing it for you, but I'm doing it with you, right, Amanda? And so,
Right.
so I like to follow along. And when my sisters talk about what's going on and the wins and the challenges, I love to share that with someone who's outside of the community, or moms who are considering turning symptoms around, don't know what they need to do that. I like to talk to moms who are in that process. And you wrote a message for all of us in the community recently, Amanda, about the changes that you had seen in your child. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But would you introduce yourself so that we can get an impression of what your life is like, what your journey's been like, where do you live your life, and what's changed for you?
All right.
So,
Well,
who are you? For those who don't know.
my name's Amanda, as you said, and I'm a mom of 2 littles right now. My oldest is Bo, who I'm in the program for, and I have a younger one named Harlow. She's a 1.5 years. I'm married, and me and my husband have been together about 8 years. We celebrated our 4th wedding anniversary yesterday.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, and before we had kids, we traveled a lot. We lived in a few different states together and really enjoyed life, and settled down in Michigan to have kids. Yeah, and now I'm a stay-at-home mom, which I really love. I feel like maybe before the process and before things kind of took a left turn for me and my family, I was restless at home. I felt like I needed to contribute more to the family, and I was trying to find all these different ways, and now I'm just really content with my role as mommy. Like, I've been able to relax into it because I know it's such a huge role, and how important it is for the whole family to have a good mother and a strong woman behind my husband as well. So that's been really relaxing, and I'm just really blossoming in my role as mommy now.
That's such a touching thing to be able to share with you and celebrate with you. Could you take us back to that woman that you were when you came to Michigan to have kids,
Okay.
and how life took a turn? Because I'm guessing that the way that you imagined having kids with your husband, it wasn't really what happened when autism came around. So could you take us from the initial planning to have kids, and then what happened next?
Okay. Yeah, life was definitely different. Me and my husband were vegans. So we lived a different lifestyle. My labor was pretty hard with my firstborn. I tried to have her at home, but things went sideways and we ended up in the hospital. But honestly, I could have stayed at home for all the help that the hospital actually ended up giving us. It wouldn't have mattered either way. Um, Bo was everything to us. She was born the first week of the COVID shutdown in the United States. And I was really lucky because I was able to have people in the hospital because it was a few days prior. And at the same time, I was so nervous about anyone being around my little one. I was kind of grateful for a shutdown because I got time with just my baby and my family. That was at that time, and she she's still everything to us. And oh, sorry. I was so attached to her, but at the same time, I didn't realize how detached I was in a lot of areas of life. And I didn't realize down the road maybe how not eating meat would affect her. I thought our lifestyle was great. I felt like other people needed to jump on board that they weren't doing right and living healthy lifestyles. Um, but yeah, I took Bo everywhere. We'd go outside the park. She was my best friend. We did everything, and then I got pregnant with my second. And winter time in Michigan's a little bit hard. I'm sure you know about winters in your area. People like to hibernate a lot. They don't like to go outside as much. And Harlow was born in the winter. And when Harlow was born, I breastfeed both kids. And, usually around 8 o'clock, I would go lay down. But during the pregnancy, we had started letting Bo have screen time. I like ABC stuff on YouTube or cute little videos or Coco Melon because, kids just loved it. And we didn't think much wrong with it. We were both raised on televisions, like both me and my husband, we used to fall asleep to the TV. And that's how we grew up. I remember as a little kid waking up in the middle of the night to the screen being fuzzy and a buzzing sound. So, but my mom's intuition always kind of had a little flare up when I would give her the phone sometimes, like, am I trading something, for this time I'm getting or keeping the house clean or whatever it was. And the phone kind of became a babysitter in a way when the second baby came. My husband, he's an artist and he works a night job as well. So to do his art, he would give her the phone or me to learn about certain things to advance in my own future that, because I was restless, I would give her the phone and I just started noticing different things. She's our firstborn, so you don't catch things quite as quickly because you just think they're a baby and maybe some of these things are normal. And Bo had already started talking at a young age and early. In fact, she said, "Mama," at 6 months. Her first word probably at 9 months. Started walking around exactly at a year. I noticed though, she didn't have a very long crawling stage. It was a short crawling stage and she scooted a little bit more. And I don't know if this was attributed to maybe that's around the time we started screen use, is right around 11 months, letting her use it in the car. But I started to notice that she didn't have more words later on. I didn't know. When I went to the doctor, she asked, "How many words does she have?" I'm like, "Oh, still about the same few." And at that time, she was doing sign language. I had taught her sign language, and right around the time Harlow was born, she stopped using her sign language as well. I know this probably is jumping back and forth because in my
No,
brain,
that's
not
great.
everything is
Yeah, I
linear.
know. That's
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
So Harlow was born right around the time Bo turned 18 months. And the day before Harlow was born, I had a home birth with her, by the way. And the day before she was born, I took Bo to our pediatrician. And at that time, I had been really leery about overload on vaccinations. But I figured that was when she was due for the vaccination where there's 3 at once.
Mhm.
And, my pediatrician told me like, oh, my kids have them. If you do the 3 now, you're pregnant, about to have the baby, you won't have to come back for a long time. And this isn't blame on anyone else. This was just my thinking about it. Like, I was like, oh, she's right. And still, I kind of went against my intuition a little bit. And the next day, Harlow was born. And before that day, Bo was still a happy baby, and she was still making eye contact, and she was still very loving towards me. And then after that, after Harlow was born and the day after the vaccinations, she quit being that way with me. She would only let her father hold her at that point in time. Um, and I don't know if it's just progressively because the cell phone became a helper around the house, a babysitter, because we didn't have many family or community in our lives at that point in time. If maybe her symptoms just started getting worse. The hand flapping started sometimes. She began to do the spin. I don't know if you, I know you would understand when I mean the spin, like just spinning with arms flapping and the eye being in the corner, all her eyes facing one corner and spinning. And just random, really like a crazy laugh, not a cute laugh, like almost an insane laugh. And other people thought it was just cute at first, but as a mother, something's like really off or wrong. And because Bo had been such a happy baby, she smiled within the first 3 days of birth. She smiled, and she always made everyone laugh and giggle and talked. And she was just so impressive. We thought, I was so proud of my first baby. I still am. And it hurts to talk about it sometimes. But I don't know why I'm crying.
Because it's painful. It is painful. It's what you have and what you lose, and the shock of that happening right before your eyes, like your child disappearing in front of you. And you are a new mom, you just had a baby. This is happening to so many moms, and I think everyone can relate to that grief.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So it really did just seem like my baby disappeared, and she didn't make eye contact any longer. Progressively, sleep started getting worse and worse. So I would put my baby Harlow to sleep with breastfeeding, and when you breastfeed, it's kind of hard to stay up because of the sleep hormones. And so she would stay up with my husband, and like I said, the phone became a little bit of a babysitter. And going forward, it just became less and less sleep. She'd wake up in the middle of the night and she would scream, and she wouldn't go to sleep till late. We couldn't understand how other people could get their kids down so early at like 8 or 9. That just blew our minds. So we just didn't understand. And at that time, I started doing like private searches on my own, on my daughter's symptoms to see where it was leading. She wasn't speaking anymore, and she wasn't using her sign language anymore. So you find all these things on Google, like, oh, it could be Einstein syndrome because Einstein didn't speak till 4, or she could just be a late talker, and then I found autism, and I'm like, okay, the hand flapping, no eye contact, like she's starting to meet the bill on some things. But I feel like I kept looking for different YouTube videos because she didn't fit exactly into any mom's video. And I just didn't feel like my perfectly happy, healthy baby could go from how she was to now this without there being a way to fix or change it. Because everything I watched just made it sound so permanent, and you had to accept things, and they just seemed so futile in all their efforts. So I just followed my intuition, and I kept searching, and I found that there's been a big correlation to autism growing, especially regressive autism, and screen use under the age of 2. So I just kept going down that rabbit hole, and I found a website that basically said, you know, take away all the screens in your home now. And if you can do that, usually kids bounce back in 6 months. I don't know if bounce back is the best way to put it. Maybe some kids that, maybe very minimal, just started showing signs. I don't know. Every child's different. But I know that first week when we took away screens in the home, Bo started making eye contact again.
Mhm.
That was huge.
Yeah.
And I think that was in July of last year when we decided as a family to stop, because I had been trying to stop the screen usage for a month or 2, but if your other family members aren't on board with you, sometimes it's a little harder. So, there were some times in the home where we had to have some deep conversations. At that time, my husband didn't know or think there was anything wrong with her, and it was a very lonely space at that point, because as a mother, I knew something was different, and he wasn't seeing it yet, and he loved his baby so much, his firstborn, that he took 3 months off of work to be, help raise that. It was too much for him to swallow at the time.
Yeah.
But I think it was, he gave her the phone one more time, and after that she was doing the spins with her eye in the corner, and she started to do a really crazy laugh that lasted a while. And
Wow.
after that, it was a really powerful moment, because we look at each other, I start crying. And after that, he was like, okay, let's do this. Let's try it. And then we took the screens away completely, even our television, because at that point I was so scared that I didn't want anything around her. And this website had even recommended stopping music for a while. So, I mean, now we have music, but at that time I was like, okay, everything just needs to go.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah. So our daughter came back, like she looked at me that week, and that was like one of those little God aha moments. And you're on the right path. So that was before I found the community, and I didn't know what really to do, except for I knew nature heals.
Yes.
So I would just pack up Harlow and Bo, and I would go to any park I could find that had like a fenced in area, and I would pack whatever food, snacks, anything healthy I could. At that time, I wasn't against gluten or dairy because I didn't know. But we would just stay outside all day, and I started to notice some changes with that too. And just little things like her starting to understand or maybe even answer to her name here and there. That was big. And then God led me to you. And I think it was on YouTube. I had found you and your channel, and I listened to the 5 wake up calls. I think, I don't know what you
Yeah.
call.
Five messages, I think, behind autism symptoms, I think it's called. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was great. That was exactly what I needed at that time, because sometimes just following your intuition, it it you it's nice to see other women that are like, this is what we're doing as well, and this worked for us, and follow your intuition and don't listen to others, because sometimes others telling you things or chatting in your ear or saying you can't do this or that, sometimes it brings you down. Um, and it was just a big reminder how powerful women's intuition is, and mothers,
Yeah.
and to keep going. And then it took me a few months to join your course, but I watched those, and I tried to implement everything, like grounding. We started grounding as much as we could. And last fall, it was a warmer fall. So me and Bo and Harlow, we would just pack up the double stroller and head out anywhere we could. And it was kind of scary at that time because Bo would still elope.
Mm.
And she's fast. She's very, very fast. But you know, you just got to take risks like that sometimes. And I would try to find open fields to go to and just sit outside, take food I know they would like. I know she loved blueberries. Blueberries kept her sitting for a while with. So, okay, I gotta calm down a little bit. So we did the grounding and we eliminated gluten and dairy and all processed foods. We eliminated everything at that point. And my husband was very supportive. He didn't know which way this was going, but he was seeing results. You know, when you're seeing, even if it's small things changing every week, but something changed every week. And I remember you saying to write down a journal for those moments. And I really wish I would have kept one for all the little moments that did change, because it just happened so fast. And when things change, it's almost like your brain wipes away what the bad things were, or what the symptoms, or what was there before.
Yeah.
I imagine it's a protective mechanism. But yeah, so we started eating cleaner, and I still wasn't in the course, but I kept following your Facebook and your emails and your YouTube and listening to the other mothers talk. So I always caught like a little bit of gold here and gold there. I realized lights in the house, the artificial lights, might have been upsetting her rhythm. So we went to candlelight at night and in the morning, or got red lamps. My husband still kept his way of eating, and he still eats his own way, but this wasn't about him. This was about my daughter and me and how connected we were. I started to realize, like you teach, if something's wrong with me and my nervous system is off, then she can't heal. And right or before the time we took away the screens, I went into the chiropractor because I woke up one morning and it felt like my back was curling in, and I thought maybe I slept bad. And I got there and he was feeling my back, and I almost started crying just at the touch. And he grabbed one of my hands and he said, "Amanda, I need to talk to you." He goes, "This happens to your body when maybe there's stuff going on, maybe you need less stress, but your body tries to protect your heart because your heart is under so much pressure." So he said, "Your body curls in to protect your heart." Oh, that was just so hard. So how could my daughter heal when I'm in this state? Because I'm worried about her. It just felt really alone. But the grounding with her every day, like, I did it for her. It wasn't for me, because at that time I couldn't grasp just working on myself. It was for my daughter. But grounding every day with her released so much stress and brought so much healing. And even my back from labor with both the girls was severely hurt. I had a hard time bending over. I was like an old woman. And I didn't realize it, but about 3 weeks into grounding, I could like bend and pick up the girls without a problem. So everything I did for Bo just started healing me, even the foods. And around that.
I ask Amanda, so
Yeah.
what happened to that protective mechanism of you, like bending forwards to protect your heart when you left that chiropractor's office? What went on what were you thinking? What were your feelings, and how did that change direction for you?
Oh, I talked to my husband about it because I realized there was a lot of things I was keeping in and just trying to keep a good face and for everyone else. But that's when I had a serious talk with him about our daughter, um, and why this was all affecting me.
Mhm.
And like I said, it was harder for him because he didn't know anything was wrong with our baby.
Yeah,
And he
he
thought
still
my worrying,
at this point, he still didn't think there was, yeah.
yeah. So it was a little harder. But let me say, I have a wonderful husband and he's so supportive. And just to know I was in that kind of stress probably brought him, a lot of stress. Uh,
What happened next?
that was right before we completely eliminated screens like that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah. And then what happened next, Amanda?
Um, let me see. So grounding, the food change.
You were still doing things on your own, and you had eliminated the screens. You had been to the chiropractor telling you that you actually were in a lot of pain, trying to protect your heart. Your husband is starting to understand something's going on. You're
Yeah.
changing screens, the screen time, eliminating all of that, going outside with,
Yeah. And then I joined your course. I was able to join your course. And that was in November. So that was about eliminated screens in July, found you around August, September, I think September. And then I joined in November.
yeah.
So after I joined, a lot more changes started happening because I feel like we plateaued a little bit for a while. But then I was in your phase one course and it helped my nervous system relax. And I noticed whenever I relax more, my daughter relaxes more. And when I quit concentrating on her, because that's so hard not to do, to look at what symptoms still are there, or um it's just
Mhm.
harder to work on yourself than it is them.
And why do you think that is? Why was that hard for you?
Oh, because if you're in your course, you find out the different stressors. You can be a cortisol or thyroid type, and I'm more of a thyroid type, and I kind of put myself on a back shelf in ways for a long time. So it's a lot easier for me to worry about others, or try to help others. And my baby's just number one in my life.
Yeah.
She's everything.
So when you started focusing on yourself and your baby always being number one, what kind of feelings did that evoke in you? Because I know for some moms that brings a feeling of shame or guilt, a feeling of urgency, like how can I focus on myself? I need to save my child now. What
Right.
what came up for you?
Oh, I mean, that's pretty much right on. Definitely there was shame and guilt and feelings I had to not try not to feel, or things I had to try not to think about, because if I thought too deep about things, it's like, look what I did to my baby. And when you do that, it's just a dark hole to go down at first. But I'm still working through those feelings.
Do you still feel like it's something you did to your baby, or have you seen other versions of that
I've
reality?
I've seen other versions of that. I was telling my husband last night that um, I have to forgive myself because I would have never done something that I would have thought would have hurt her potentially. And the beauty that has come since, the change, and our whole life is different, completely different. We live more naturally. We're outdoors all the time. We're not stressed. as much, you know. We have normal stresses, but nothing like it used to be. I used to be anxious all the time. I used to have habits that would help me detach, you know, and uh, now I'm very present, you know. Um, Other people might think I'm a little bit of a wild mom, and I don't mind. Me and my children, we are a little wild. You know, I love living more naturally, and ever since then, it's been a trail of like little God moments that happen or little signs. You know, I feel like if you're on the right path, you'll have little signs and or God or will give you something to complete. And once you complete that, like some more things will come your way. Or if you're in a plateau with your child and you do the right thing for yourself, and you know, things will change. Just we've just been on a road of complete change all the time and fast forward. But yeah, obviously I still have some healing to do, and I still have some deep feelings about everything.
And
Yeah.
I think for me, the healing process, it's probably been 16 years. When my son was fully recovered, I started grieving for the first time because, you know, when you're in a state of emergency, there's no time to cry. Or there wasn't for me. That was my default survival state. So I thought, now I'm going to talk about my son's recovery. I could not even speak because every time I opened my mouth, I would bawl and cry. Like people would look at me thinking, is she mentally unwell, you know? So the healing process is far longer than we think.
It is.
So that's because autism is here to actually heal us and to teach us to be kinder to ourselves, to be more present in this life. And I would like to hear a little bit more about your God moments, those little signs and the things that you are healing currently.
Okay. Oh. So the God moments are interesting because they'll come out of nowhere and something will just make sense to you that was so obvious before, but it's almost like we've been brainwashed or taught so in such a bad manner that coming back to nature and the state we should be, you know, seems like amazing when something clicks.
Yeah.
um I can't think of any specific examples at the moment, but if I do, I'll come back to it. Um, Things that have been healed for my daughter.
What is healing? So let's start with that. So from it was November, your journey, you've done a lot of preparation and groundwork, and you've gotten your child to an incredible state already at the time where you met me and you joined the program. What has happened since November?
Oh,
What's changed for you and for her?
okay. One thing. I know, wipe my nose. um, you know, a lot had changed before your program, but not to the point that it is now. I had eye contact and which is beautiful, and she was answering to her name from time to time, but she still had a lot of the stems that
Yeah.
people would call them stems. She had a lot of stems. She would scream a lot. That's something I definitely will never forget is her screams. She didn't she didn't talk anymore. She had screams when she opened her mouth, or different noises. And sometimes when one stem would heal, I noticed another would appear in a lesser form, but it would still be a stem. So
Yeah.
it would just transform. So over time, she no longer screams. She no longer hand flaps. The spinning disappeared, except for healthy spinning. It's very healthy for children to spin,
Yes.
but her eyes aren't in all the way to the corner. Like, it's just a normal child spin. Her playing and enjoying herself. She sleeps through the night.
Oh,
That was a big change after your course, because you started to learn about circadian rhythms, and I would try to get the morning light, or if I didn't get the morning golden light, I would try to get the afternoons, and I just remember in the beginning of the course, I tried to do everything perfectly, like just as it should be. And I didn't realize that that was actually causing more stress, me trying to, okay, wake my babies up by this time, even though they're not ready to be up. And
yeah.
I just realized I really had to relax into things more. And like you said, you can't be rigid. You can be flexible, but maybe try to adhere to different schedules more. I started having a little more grace with myself, because it was a lot, and having two children, two littles, is a lot just in general. And the more grace I have with myself, and the more relaxed I become, the better everyone in the family is. Even my husband, there's been so many great changes for us as a family, and he just watches us and he joins, and um, I always let him know what a huge place it is for him being the head of the household, and he's really fulfilled that spot. Um, my daughter, we were just talking about it yesterday. She was sleeping, and I said, "What changes have you noticed in baby Bo?" And she can follow instructions now, and she's very present. For a long time, if you look at pictures for 1 year, she would never look at the camera, and it just seemed a very vacant look in her eyes. And now she still doesn't really like the camera, but
My
uh,
son doesn't.
but she's so present, and she's so alive. And when my parents would come over to visit, they'd come over for 3 hours, and right before they would leave, she might let them hold her. But now she's in their lap, she's playing games, she's making eye contact. She plays with her little sister, and she's very protective over her. I mean, she doesn't always like her, but that's a sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I noticed I think her words are starting to push through a little bit. She said mama a few times again the other day, and mama's come and gone a little bit over the past 4 months. So I don't want to hold anything on that, but I see it coming. I think she just needs a little more confidence now. But I used to gauge her healing on when she would talk. Like, that was so big for me. I just wanted to hear my baby's voice again. I just wanted her to talk. And then I had to realize I have to have patience, because this is a process. And if I'm just trying to hold on to when she'll talk again, I'm missing all the other little signs of healing, like her being present, her her being able to throw something into the trash when I ask her to, or her just knowing she's supposed to do that and go over to the trash. That was big for me when she threw something away. Getting herself dressed, getting her sister dressed, not eloping anymore. But she does like to run, and she
Mhm.
likes me to chase her. So that's not a fun game when it's in a parking lot. But it's a game now. It's not just she's running and never turning around or coming back.
Yeah, it's still traumatic for you. And one thing I probably would like to invite everyone, including you, Amanda, to remember is that when I don't think I've spoken to one mom who hasn't told me, moms who have children who struggle with language and speech. I just want to hear my baby talk. I want my child to say mama. And one thing that I've learned over the years, just observing these children and my own child, so many children over the years, is that these children are the voice, the advocate for our inner children. And so when we think that we want to hear our child speak, it's often because there's so many areas of grief and detachment where our inner child, which is also represented by the body, still needs to be heard and seen and protected and nourished. And so many times as autism moms, we've neglected our own needs and even for sleep and for healing the stress and the trauma of autism parenting. And our kids know that. They have so much compassion for their moms and their moms' well-being. So they will hold off on those aspects until we give space to our own healing and our own body and our own inner children. And then all of a sudden things change. So that's just a little reminder that they have so much compassion for our inner children that they'll actually communicate that inner child's need through reluctance in their own development.
Wow.
So yeah, I've seen moms who've done nothing but self-care, and their children go from nonverbal to speaking. And that should not be possible, which is something we have to glorify God for, because it's so miraculous. But I do think it's such a spiritual message for moms, is that the world, the way that the world is laid out now, there's no room for moms. There's no room for women to be moms in the house, in nature, have time and space to simply take care of her children. And it's so stressful for women, stressful for our hormonal system, and it's not the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
You know? So that's what you are also, you're bringing that story forward, and that's a very important message that you're bringing forward, is that has been such a big part of the change for you, that you now really enjoy. You're not busy. You don't have this impatience. You just want to be a mom, and that's your finest job. It's a sacred assignment.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for that. I do want to make time just to touch on your journey as a vegan. How did that begin? And the reason why I'm curious, I want to let you know, if you're listening in and you're thinking, why is that relevant? With autism, about 90 to 98% of the autistic children, and actually the moms too, are dealing with something called undermethylation.
Yeah.
About this endlessly in previous podcasts, but Dr. William Walsh has done extensive research, nonprofit, 8,000 autistic children, and also mental health cases. Understanding that undermethylation means low methyl, and methylation is what drives detoxification, neurotransmitter activity, enzymes, hormones, gene expression, actually also birth and birth experiences, and infertility and depression, eating disorders, all of this, that's linked. And interestingly, a propensity for perfectionism and control over food. So typically someone who's undermethylated will also be attracted to veganism. So when did that begin for you? And what did you notice about that as you became pregnant the first time and the second time around and onwards? Did you notice anything about your health or anything about your mental health?
I wasn't feeling very healthy when I got pregnant, and when I was pregnant with Bo, it was a very hard pregnancy. I didn't gain a lot of weight. You know, everyone would comment how nice I looked, but on the inside, I felt very bad. I was anxious, and my body, I was throwing up a lot, you know. But my second pregnancy was a lot easier. I ate more. I let myself have fish, and I was eating eggs. And towards the middle of my pregnancy, in the first one, I started eating eggs and cheese and things like that. But it took some convincing in our family because we had thought veganism was so healthy and so right. But the whole time I was just craving a burger or a steak or, something like that. Um,
Do you remember what changed? And do you remember when you started eating meat? What happened and what triggered that?
oh, in the pregnancy?
No, just in general, because now you're no longer a vegan, right?
Right. I was willing to do anything to promote brain growth in my child, and if it was something that was missing in me, I was going to do it with them because I needed to test how I would react to things along with my child. So we needed to eat the same for me to understand how she was feeling and how I was feeling. And it was an experiment, and I started feeling a lot better. I wasn't as anxious all the time.
Mm.
I didn't realize, I used to have some habits to kind of smooth over my anxiousness, and I didn't need those anymore. So
That's great. Well, I just find it so motivating, and I just want to thank you for your vulnerability and your willingness to share, Amanda. The whole part of the journey and the fact that it's difficult is not like, okay, then all these symptoms have changed and then everything's easy. There's still a lot of grief. There's still healing to be done, and that's what we're working through now. But I would like to ask you if there is, like, if you were to go back to that mom that you were before all of this happened, before all of these changes happened, what 3 messages would you give her in an envelope? Because that's what we're going to bring on to the moms that are listening in today as the last message for them.
Oh, wow. That's funny because I thought of something like this yesterday. I was thinking about it. Like, if I could just talk to younger Amanda, like, what would I say to her? I would tell her that their time is very precious. So, babies' times are very precious and it doesn't last long. And sometimes technology seems like it's a few minutes or it's 20 minutes or whatever it is, but their time is precious and it adds up. And the house doesn't need to be perfect. And go outside with them as much as you can.
Mhm.
And maybe speak your piece a lot more. Speak your truth. Don't care what other people think because it's a waste. And love yourself and sink into your role as a mother because, like you said, it's a sacred job. So I know that sounded like a few different messages, but that's what I would want to tell her.
I think that's
Love
so
your job as a mom. Go outside and just hold your kids because time passes fast.
exactly.
So,
And as a mom who you've turned symptoms around, what's your message for those who say there's nothing you can do, it's a lifelong condition, you just need to cope with it and learn how to deal with it and accept it and actually be proudful of it? What's your message for that?
but it can turn around. And, you know, you do have to have patience, and you may have to completely change your way of life and your lifestyle. And you know what? It's going to be more beautiful than it was before, and it's going to be easier in the long run. But I wish my daughter was here right now. She's back. My baby Bo, I have her. You know, I wish I could express it in words. There's so many emotions right now, and I wish I could explain it. But you can have your baby. You, I hope you edit that part out. I don't know what to say.
That's the most beautiful part of this conversation.
But
You can have your baby back.
yeah, she's so present and loving, and I get to hold her every day and have a conversation with her, and I know she's understanding it now, and she's actually ahead of the game in so many areas. Her physicality, she's in great shape. Her running, her jumping, her empathy, just everything. You know, I see other moms that have older children that could still be helped from this. It can turn around. I'm sorry. I wish I could express myself clearer.
Oh, I don't think I've met anyone who's expressing themselves as clearly as you. So I'm just so grateful. Thank you so much, beautiful Amanda, for sharing your story, for letting us into your world and behind the scenes, and to feel with you the joy and the grief of this journey. And I'm just so excited to be able to still continue to walk with you through this development. Thank you so much for sharing today. Thank you. Thank you.